I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and episode 3 of our special series, Megyn Kelly Investigates, on the disappearance of Baby Lisa. Nearly 13 years ago, in Kansas City, Missouri, Lisa Irwin, a 10-month-old baby girl, vanished in the middle of the night. What could have possibly happened to her? One man emerges who might have some answers. Are you ready to toast the golden age of America? Whether you prefer white, red, or sparkling, Republican Red Winery has patriotic wines your friends and family will rave about. Okay, they sent me 2 of these bottles, and I kind of laughed at first because it's kind of funny, you know, like mine was like Second Amendment red. It was freaking delicious. I loved it. Doug loved it, and he loves red wine. His brother loved it, and we ordered more. Check it out, okay? They've got a new and iconic 45-47 Pinot Noir, get it? Or the newly released Golden Age sparkling wine that pays tribute to America's 45th and now 47th president. These are bold wines that will let others know where you stand, inspire important conversations, and with over 50,000 delighted customers, Republican Red Winery has earned a sterling reputation for exceptional quality and outstanding customer service. Think of what a fun gift this would be. Honestly, for your Democrat or your Republican friends. Your Republican friends are going to love it and find it a really fun conversation piece, and your Democrat friends will get the joke and have a laugh and actually really enjoy the wine. Go to RepublicanRed.com to support this generational family-run business dedicated to producing 100% American-made wines. And to celebrate the golden age, we're offering you an exclusive discount. Use code Megan at checkout for an additional $5 off your order. Go to RepublicanRed.com and select your favorite wines that ship directly to your doorstep. RepublicanRed.com. RepublicanRed.com. Offer code Megan. Here's where we are. After a $100,000 reward was posted and the widespread pursuit of an unknown man walking with a baby, 2 people of interest emerged. James Brando, who lived next door to Deborah Bradley and Jeremy Irwin, and who had split up with his wife Samantha earlier that day. Samantha, you may remember, was drinking with Deborah on Deborah's front stoop the night baby Lisa went missing. Brando was investigated and ultimately ruled out. That left John Jersey Tanko, the handyman with a history of drug abuse, arson, and break-ins, who was working nearby. As we learned in our last episode, he had an ex-girlfriend who he may have believed wanted a baby. Her name is Megan Wright. Was Tanko trying to bring Megan a baby in the hopes of getting back together? And now we turn to perhaps the most crucial clue in this case. Remember those 3 cell phones on the Irwin's kitchen counter taken the night that Lisa was? 2 of them had restrictions for non-payment. But right near midnight, there was an attempted phone call from the one phone that worked. It was to a cell phone that was less than a mile away, and it lasted 50 seconds. So what did the cops say to you about that piece of evidence? Lisa's father, Jeremy Irwin.
So they told me that there was a phone call from one of Deborah's phones, and we were able to get the records from that phone line. Went back over 3 years, and I myself, hand by hand, went over every number in the whole thing. And that was the first time in which that number had ever popped up.
I mean, and that's our best lead. Law enforcement went right to work on tracing that call. It went to a phone that belonged to Megan Wright. Yes, the same Megan Wright who had recently split up with Jersey, aka John Tanko.
Now I'm learning that mystery phone call was made to the handyman's ex-girlfriend.
We told you last week about that phone call. It was placed to a phone belonging to a woman named Megan Wright.
How much contact did you have with Jersey on the day or the evening that baby Lisa went missing? Megan Wright.
None. He and I hadn't been together for over a month at that point. And I had seen him and spoke to him prior to that, but nothing on the day of.
Megan was 20 at that time and had moved to Kansas City earlier that year. She told us she had been in an abusive relationship, left it, lived for a time at a domestic violence shelter, and after that was moving from group home to group home, temporary living situations. She says she met Tanko at one of them.
It was probably 2 months into to us meeting and hanging out together that I learned that he was bringing drugs to that house to the other people that lived there. And that's when I was invited to snort a line of meth for the first time. And I did. That was the first time I'd ever done it. And I was at this horrible point in my life and drinking too much pretty much every day. Not the best of decisions, but it wasn't a far step from where I was at. So that was the first time I ever got high on anything. You know what I mean? It was a life-changing experience that I never saw coming for myself.
By the time of Lisa's disappearance, Megyn had become a full-on methamphetamine addict and was trying to stay away from Tanko. The very last time she saw him, Megyn says Tanko scared her.
The last time was when he had the van and almost hit the porch. He aggressively left the road, drove into the grass of the yard, and almost clipped the porch as he parked the van to run up the stairs to try and get in the house to get me. That's the last time that I had any type of contact with him. And like I said, it was from 20 feet away with 4 or 5 people in between us that we had any contact.
And this is prior to Lisa's disappearance?
Yes.
Megyn moved to a house on 44th and Brighton, a little over a mile away from the Irwin house.
I had moved there in fear of John, because he kept coming back to that house where I had originally met him, where I was living at the time. He would not leave me alone after I broke up with him.
By her account, it was a trap house, a drug den, and her contribution to the household was to let people use her phone.
Living in a trap house, what you can provide is everything. Like I said, having the phone and paying the bill every month, that was one thing I could provide to everybody in the house. Now everybody has access to a cell phone with internet. When you're desperate and you're 20 years old and you're just trying not to die, you'll do anything to stay anywhere that's not outside, which is where the only place I had to go.
Well, why would anyone involved in the disappearance of Baby Lisa call your cell phone the night Baby Lisa went missing?
I have no idea. It's hard for me to say. I had only had that number. It was like a Verizon prepaid phone for about 6 months. I still got calls for other people, whoever had the number prior. There were several people that used my phone in the house that I lived in on a regular basis, so there would be calls coming in for those people.
On the night Lisa went missing, October 3rd, Megyn says she left her phone on an upstairs table.
I was in that house in the basement getting high in the very early morning hours of October 3rd for the last time of my life. So I know exactly where I was at. After I left there, it was probably 3:30 or so in the morning. I went to Waffle House with one of the girls that was getting high with me at the house there.
Okay. And so you left that house, but you left your cell phone behind at the drug house.
Yes. I left my phone there, and there were people that were using it throughout the evening. So we had dinner or breakfast, whatever. Went to Walmart, did our shopping, checked out after food stamps hit at 6 in the morning. I probably got back to the house 7 or 8 in the morning. And that's when I was handed my phone that had been cleared of texts and call logs and told, hey, somebody said the FBI had called your phone. And I had no idea what was happening at that point. That's when I turned the news on and was able to see the broadcast of her missing.
Did you say who picked it up? Let me talk to the person who talked to the FBI.
That's what I said. I said, who had my phone? Who was using it? Who were they talking to?
At that time, Megyn says she was told that Dane Greathouse, a man staying in her same house that night, had her phone. And describe Dane for us.
I didn't know him very well. He had been, like I said, I was living at a trap house. He had been in and out for about a 2-week period prior to that day. So I had seen him. I had been kind of informally introduced to him, but we never really hung out together in the house.
How old would you say?
He was maybe a few years older than me at that point, 24, 25, I think.
A month after Lisa went missing, Dane had a text exchange with a Kansas City TV reporter and denied any connection with Megan Wright or the missing child. But he did say that he had used her phone.
I used Megan's cell phone to have my phone turned on and some rides lined up, Dane texted.
When our producer talked with him, Greathouse said he did not really know Megan Wright, but did confirm that they both stayed at the same house for a few nights, the house on 44th and Brighton. Greathouse said Megan did indeed share her phone with everyone there, and he told us he used her phone 3 times to make calls, but says he never once answered it. The public records only tell half the story.
I tried to get all those records to be preemptive about it, because if the FBI called my phone, I want to know why. That's not something that happens to anybody in their regular life.
Megan Wright tells us that terrible night for the Irwins was a big turning point in her life, too. She says the very next morning, she began to get her act together.
And I decided in that moment, never getting high again. So October 4th is my first day sober, 2011. I've been sober since.
About a week later, she says, the FBI brought her in for questioning.
So when it was a couple of days later at that point, the FBI stopped me and take me in for questioning. They connected all the dots and confirmed that they had attempted to call my phone on the evening of, because they had gotten the call records from the Irwin's phone, and they were just trying to call the number back immediately. That's why my phone was called.
What was your reaction when they told you?
I was terrified. Terrified. At this point, I was a week sober.
And once they were done asking her about her own possible involvement, they grilled her about her ex, Tanko.
He definitely knew my number by heart because he called me from multiple phones all the time. Like I said, when we were first talking, he didn't have a phone. He had just gotten out of jail, was living at the Honor Center, and was trying to get back on his feet. And then he was so devastated when I rejected him and left him and told him why. You're not the type of man I can have a family with, and that's what I want in my life. And I don't know if the way I delivered it or the circumstances surrounding our breakup or if drugs had anything to do with it on his part at that point, but he just revolted. Everything in him hated me after that. And the more that I told him, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to see you, don't come around here, we're not getting back together. It just was so constant with him until I left the city.
Did you know that he was a burglar?
And at the time, no. I've seen his arrest reports and stuff since I broke up and have learned a lot more about him.
What month was the breakup in 2011?
It was after Easter that year. I want to say it was like May or June, before the 4th of July, because I didn't end up going to my family's 4th of July party that year because I was upset about the breakup.
Okay. And do you have any reason to believe he stopped using meth at any point in 2011?
I have no idea. Like I said, after I broke up with him, I tried my very best not to have contact with him, especially in person, because he made me incredibly nervous. I have a lot of PTSD from the things that he put me through that I've tried really hard to work through over the years. But there's a lot of it I can't let go of. I can't forget being that afraid.
Were you thinking, this guy's kind of crazy? Could have been him.
Yes, I definitely thought this guy is crazy and that he was horrible to me, traumatized me. But I have no idea what he's capable of.
Again, reporter Jim Spellman.
I think if you start to look past the family, it's likely that it's somebody who at least knew the neighborhood to know that this baby was in this house. And so he's somebody that absolutely is top of mind. If not a suspect, because he's another person that the police said that they moved on from, that perhaps somebody in his world might know something more.
The phones and the phone use continued to be a mystery. At 3:17 a.m., one of the phones tried to access voicemail. Now, why would that be? 5 minutes later, at 3:22 a.m., there was an attempt attempt to use the phone's web browser. As I reported for Fox News back then, Deborah's attorney said there were 5 attempts made to get online via the phone, and the phones never got more than a third of a mile away from the house on North Lister. And remember this from our last episode. If it really was the same man with a baby that the Parscals and Mike Thompson saw that night, he would have spent nearly 4 hours within a 3-mile radius of Baby Lisa's home. You would think, okay, let's see who's on the other end of that number. And that was Megan Wright's phone. So, okay, boom, we're off to the races. Megan Wright knows the abductor. Not that simple. Reporter Jim Spellman.
Not that simple at all. First off, I don't believe the police have released the full records of those phones involved. And I think that that is information that they have purposely withheld to be able to use to their advantage in their investigation. So we know that at least one of those phones was used to make at least one call to Megan Wright's phone.
You spoke with her a lot. Do you believe her claims that she did not have the phone when that number was dialed and that she had nothing to do with this?
I believe every single thing that Megan Wright told me within her ability to remember things. But I don't think that she was making up any of it. She was very helpful throughout the entire thing. If she tried to help us meet people, she would give us phone numbers of people. She never asked me for anything the whole time that we were doing this. And I think that she is exactly who she says she is. A troubled person, absolutely, but not somebody who had any direct involvement in this.
Meanwhile, Kansas City attorney Cindy Short was working hard to find answers, even after she was off the legal team. After 10 days, she says she and lead attorney Joe Tacopina parted company in a dispute over strategy. But Cindy continued to look for Tanko. And now she's going to tell us something she has never before shared publicly, and it's fascinating. A day or two after she left the case, Cindy found John Tanko in the Clay County Jail north of Kansas City, and she interviewed him for 10 hours over a 2-day period. What he told her could change the entire trajectory of this investigation. Set the scene for us. Like, was it hard? Did he come right out to talk to you?
He did come right out to meet with me, and I think probably out of curiosity, I introduced myself and I told him who I was and what I was doing, and that I had been working on the Baby Lisa case, that I was no longer representing Deborah, and that I had some questions about him and his role in the neighborhood, and hoped that maybe he could help me if he was willing to talk about it.
And you're face to face. There's no glass between you.
No glass. And he's a small guy.
Does he look disheveled? Is he a good-looking man? What is he? How would you describe?
He was tough-looking. He looked like a sophisticated consumer of the criminal justice system. He looked like someone who had had a rough life. He was cautious, I think, as he should have been.
But Cindy says he was forthcoming and emotional about his troubled childhood.
It was an interesting roller coaster of emotion, where he was sometimes stoic. There were times, quite honestly, where he was in tears. It was confusing in some ways. I was trying to use my best persuasive skills to help convince him to maybe bring closure to a family, if he could. I tried to get him to tell me where he was on October 3rd and 4th, and he didn't think that would be in his best interest.
And then a stunning confession.
He did tell me, though, that he had found 3 cell phones, and he told me where he had found them. He also claimed to have told the police that he had found 3 cell phones.
This is extraordinary. The 3 cell phones went missing from Baby Lisa's house on the night she was taken. And now he's telling you. And there's the reason we know his name to begin with is, yes, neighbors had said he was in the area as kind of a sketchy character. But the reason we know his name is because we have a phone bill that shows one of the Irwins' 3 cell phones called Megan Wright.
Yes.
And so once again, it's a link potentially back to Jersey. And now he's telling you, they never found the cell phones. He's telling you he found them.
Yes. Yes. And he's telling me where, which is not very far from the house. So he's placing himself, not just the proximity of the phones, but in possession of the phones. He's claiming that he's with another woman at the time that they find the phones. He tells me where they are under this bridge at 210 and North Brighton. And in fact, this is when I employed one of my investigators with a dog to go down to that location. And he went so far as to tell me that the car that he was in with this woman had a leak, and that I would be able to find a stain on the road where they had stopped. And we did find a stain, but roads have stains. So we went down there with the dog, and under this bridge, there is a culvert. And so there is water there, but it's very low water. Because at one point he had talked about throwing the phones into a pond. He'd also talked about the phones being in this woman's car.
But just to back up. So he's saying, there we are having some car trouble, get out of the car, and boom, 3 cell phones.
Yeah.
And I was just guessing that these belong to Deborah and Jeremy. Like, does he offer any reason why he knows it's those phones?
He just told me they were 3 cell phones on the side of the road. Now, he's not telling me that they're Jeremy but I think the connection would be that if he...
It's 3 cell phones that are sitting there together?
Yes, 3 cell phones sitting there together. Now, at some point he had, he tried to tell me that I don't steal cell phones. But the thing about it is, a thief, if you're going to go into a house to steal stuff, which this guy does, then you're going to steal things you can sell really easily. Cell phones, guns, any kind of electronics, things you can pick up easily, throw them in your pockets. These 3 cell phones were sitting on a counter in the kitchen. So it would have been very easy for a burglar coming into the home through the front door or through that window. The phones would have been right there.
But keep in mind Jersey's drug use and his rap sheet. How reliable was he? Was he playing games with Cindy, trying to get information from her to see what she and investigators knew? It's extraordinary that in his time with you, he volunteered that he spent time with these cell phones.
Yes.
That even he seems to be suggesting are related to the case.
Yeah.
Like the fact, I think Phil Houston would say that's a liar who doesn't know what you know about what connections he has, admitting just so much just to see, but leaving himself escape routes.
Right.
So maybe he could get some more information from you, or just in case you knew more than he thought you did.
Right. Right.
That must have been chilling. I mean, was that chilling, Cindy, when he admitted that?
Yes.
I take it that was the most shocking revelation that he copped to, finding 3 mysterious cell phones.
Yes.
Shortly after Baby Lisa went missing. Like, how close in time?
It was right in that time frame. It was right when it happened.
But yet didn't want to give you the timeline on what he did the night she went missing, thinking that wasn't going to land in a good place. Because she was building trust, still hoping for a confession, and because she had also offered to represent him, Cindy maintained client-attorney confidentiality and did not bring this new information to police or to the new legal team representing Deborah. John Paserno replaced Cindy as Joe Tacopina's local counsel. According to him, those 3 phones have never been found.
They were trying to locate the cell phones by the pings on the cell phone towers geographically. And, when they do their triangulation, it's not specific. It came out to an area that's a large wooded area, which did receive quite a bit of interest from law enforcement. They did a couple of searches there for Missouri Missing as well with citizens in that area, but nothing ever really came from the cell phones.
Missy Rasmussen and Jackie Heller are Kansas City moms who are co-authoring a book about this case. There's been speculation that the phones maybe were discarded by the real kidnapper and then just found by somebody who then called that number. How do you gals like that theory?
I think it's just as viable as any other theory. The phones do not make sense. I think it's almost impossible to make sense of the phones.
To this day, it's an open question. Why does a one step above homeless guy steal a baby? It's not like there's some known black market for babies that would be something so sophisticated to get your, foot into. He wouldn't have that, right? So it's to what end? Again, reporter Jim Spellman.
That's what I've come back to over and over again, is to what end? And you're absolutely right. There's no way that somebody like Jersey or this guy, Dane Greathouse, who also had a lot of legal problems as well, that these are not the kind of characters who would be likely to be involved in some sort of high dollar, baby stealing ring or something like that. If that even exists, it's incredibly uncommon, and that these guys would somehow get involved with it seems, incredibly unlikely.
Cindy Short keeps coming back to her time with Jersey. When they talked about his childhood, he told her he was put in a boys' home at age 10 and was later institutionalized to deal, he said, with his pyromania and impulse control problems.
The other thing that was chilling for me were the tears. It felt to me like there was this, we were right on the tip of him wanting to tell me something, but he couldn't. And I didn't have the kind of leverage that police have. There was nothing I could give. There was nothing I could use to, other than the goodness of his heart.
Right. Do you think he was thinking about confessing?
It felt that way. And I walked away from it feeling that way. We were just almost there.
I'm joined now by my partners in crime, if you will, longtime CIA interrogator and human lie detector, Phil Houston, and ex-NYPD and security expert, Bill Stanton. All right, guys, let's talk about Cindy Short. We were just almost there, she said. This information about a jailhouse meeting with John Tanko is incredible, no?
Agreed. If that is the case, if that is a fact, that is as close to a smoking gun as this case has come to at this point.
100%. Moving on to the call to Megan Wright's phone. This is critical. Phil and Bill, you watched my entire interview with Megan Wright. It went on for much longer than the excerpts that we've, put in this series. She's had a hard life. She was very emotional throughout the 2 hours. Here she is talking about losing custody of her child.
All right, this is the hardest part to talk about for me, because not only was my life affected, my child's life was too, because I didn't have the mental capacity to care for either one of us, which is why I was charged with the endangering the welfare of a child was for medical neglect. I was dealing with manic episodes and postpartum depression, and still didn't have very much family support. His father was already out of the picture. And the state of Missouri, instead of getting me psychiatric help or ordering psychiatric help, they brought me into the judicial system and charged me with a felony and then served 2 years in prison.
How do you feel about it now, looking back at, the way you were taking care of him?
I just regret the fact I didn't have the support that I needed. So shortly after getting out of the mental hospital, out of addiction, out of an abusive relationship, out of being traumatized for 2 months, after being railroaded in the media, questioned by the FBI, dropped by your family, losing everything you've ever owned in your whole life, and then getting pregnant was the only reason I didn't kill myself. And then to lose custody of him 10 months later, it has really affected my will to live.
He was underweight? Is that what
Yes.
he was underweight? Severely.
Can we not talk about this? This is the worst thing in my life, and you're just dwelling on it, and I really don't appreciate it.
We can move right past.
I'm trying to participate for the sake of Baby Lisa, not to focus on the worst thing in my life, the most embarrassing thing.
She was very emotional right from the start, and I was moved by it. It seemed like real emotion to me.
Yeah, it was not, Megan. Most of it.
It was not? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, yeah. She's a master at turning on and off the tears.
But she's at some point, Phil, she was like shaking. She was almost hyperventilating, and she was like trying to get her.
Megan, when you hear Megan Wright, it's hard to not hear and feel badly for her when she speaks about the trials and challenges that she's faced during her life. If you're looking at her from the deception detection standpoint, what you see is that she's using these trials and challenges to hide something. Every time you ask a question, you see what we call the trifecta of deception, which is evasion, persuasion, and aggression. So she doesn't give you what you ask for. She then uses her trials and tribulations to convince you that there's no reason in the world why she should be suspected. And then she blames somebody else. She attacks somebody else. The number of people that she attacked Jersey, she attacked the FBI, she attacked the police, she attacked the public, she attacked friends, and she attacked you. And that's her way of trying to get people to back off. She wants you to feel bad about her so that by the time she's done, you don't even remember the question.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that she does that's very, very interesting is she gave us many what we call truth in the lie. For example, when she says, what I'm really trying to do is get everyone to focus on Lisa and not me. Now think about that. If you're someone that's trying to, avoid disclosing something, what she's really saying is, I'm trying to, keep the light off of me.
So what does that tell you? I mean, I know the obvious, well, that she's lying, but I mean, what?
Yeah.
Why?
She is protecting herself from whatever she knows about Lisa's, disappearance. She is protecting Jersey in a crazy way. And what I mean by crazy way, I don't think she has any longer she has a great affinity for Jersey. I think she fears him.
But do you, having listened to it, Phil, do you have a takeaway on whether she was the phone holder that night?
I have a strong sense that she left her phone there or gave it to someone. In other interviews, she has said that she deliberately left her phone there so other people could use it that night, and I really didn't need it. Yeah. And so I have a feeling there was an ulterior motive for why she left the phone there and didn't need it. And
you're going like full bore against her. So under your theory is she wanted the baby. She was in on the baby plot. She gave the phone to somebody else so that it wouldn't be on her, and she intentionally went to Waffle House, Walmart, so she wouldn't be near any.
I'm not convinced, Megan, that it is a baby plot for her. I'm not convinced of that at all. I think she knows either beforehand or after the fact what happened.
Now, Megan, I can imagine your audience is not going to be happy with what Phil says, but Phil is not called upon to make people happy. Phil is called upon to detect deception. So while people may be saying, how can he talk this way? No. He's putting his emotion aside.
What would a truth teller have sounded like?
Megan, it's impossible to know, because what I would submit to you is the focus would be on the I didn't do it. In the worst case scenario, she could have been the reason the baby's missing to begin with. If you think about Megan and trying to convince the world that she's not involved, the same coincidental nature of her saying on that very night, I decided, it was either that very day or that very night, I decided that I'm going to go sober.
Yes. All right. I'm going to admit that stood out at me.
Why was that night so powerful? Why on earth was it so powerful?
Okay, but I'll defend her. I'm going to defend her. You're already unstable. You're on drugs. Your family doesn't want anything to do with you. You were in a domestic violence shelter, from some jerk in your life. Now you're with this other jerk who you've broken up with, who's stalking you. You're traumatized. There was a lot. That morning, at least she found out that the FBI was calling her, and she's worried. I don't know. She's worried. So could that be, like I said, scared straight?
She says the FBI called her. We don't know that. That's what she said.
Yeah. Also, she said, I didn't know who to call back. Google the FBI and you have a phone number. If somebody thought I had committed a crime, I'd be on the phone with the police or with the FBI or whoever.
She's a drug addict. She lives in a drug house. None of these people wants to voluntarily bring law enforcement into their lives. What does she gain by telling us falsely that the FBI called her when they didn't call her? I don't see it. See, there you go. I've rehabilitated her on one of your key points, Phil. Take the L.
It's very possible that she's simply trying to get everyone to believe that she's been through all the right steps and she cooperated every step along the way.
I feel bad. I don't want Megan Wright to be completely bashed here without a defense, because I thought it was very courageous for her to sit across from somebody like me who, even though I'm sympathetic to everything she's gone through, she knows I'm not an easy interviewer. She's not a dope. So
you guys had me crying. I was crying.
Yeah, you were crying.
I was
crying.
so
cynical.
That's what we pay him the big bucks for.
I apologize.
Is there any chance how confident are you? Because I'll say this, I love you, Phil, but are you too biased against Megan Wright and in favor of Deborah?
No, she can make herself cry by thinking about all the bad and horrible things that happen. And she turns it on and off on command.
I mean, I know you're a genius, but I still have sympathies for her.
And we're allowed to do that, Megan. We're allowed to have that emotional response. But to Phil's point, many a bad guy and bad woman will prey upon that emotional response.
Yeah.
The bad guys know how to manipulate. They have sad stories, but they still may be bad guys. Now, do I think, I differ slightly than Phil. I do think it's Jersey. I do think that, I don't think it was an organized thing. I think it was a crime of opportunity, because why would he be walking up the block, with a baby in its arms?
I think it's Jersey as well. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think the admission to the lawyer about finding 3 phones on the night that 3 phones were stolen is ludicrous.
Wait, what do you mean?
To believe that that's not him doing a couple of things. What he is doing is he is trying to cover his tracks, first of all, because if those phones turn up somewhere, he thinks his fingerprints or other digital association will be made with him. So he wants an explanation of why he's on there, doing something.
I knew it. I said that to Cindy Short. I said Phil Houston's going to say he was admitting just enough to cover something he did, but not the whole thing.
Yeah.
John Jersey Tanko was questioned by the police at the time. He denies any involvement, and the case remains open. Coming up in our next episode, new theories emerge about the disappearance that take the story in a completely new direction. We'll see you tomorrow for episode 4. But first, if you're watching right now, please take a look at this picture of Lisa as she might look now. If you're listening, you can see the photo on YouTube or just go to megynkelly.com. If you see her or think you might have any information that can help find her, please write to me. The address is Megyn, Megyn, at megynkelly.com. You can also pass along tips on the Baby Lisa story to the Kansas City Police Department or encourage them to get active on this case. That would be very helpful. Reach out at kccrimestoppers.com, kccrimestoppers.com, or call them at 816-474-TIPS, TIPS. That's 816-474-8477. Okay, so you're thinking about what to get that person who has everything. Or maybe you are that person that has everything and you just happen to appreciate the finer things. Well, do you want something really special? Consider hot salt. This is such a unique, fun gift. Yes, hot salt. Exquisite, savory heat. Now you're interested. So let me tell you about Firecracker Farm, a wonderful little family company that makes hot salt, a delightful spice-infused sea salt. It has the perfect amount of heat and amazing flavor that makes everything taste better. Word is getting out and people are loving it. And that is because it's made with love. People can feel it and taste it. It's a small batch, family operation, so supplies are limited. It comes in sleek, stainless steel push grinders, really cool. Plus, you can take them anywhere. When you run out, they have refills. A little too spicy for you? Just mix it in with some regular sea salt to tame the heat, but you won't need to. It's blended to perfection. Honestly, it's the best thing to happen to food since fire. So, what are you waiting for? Go to firecracker.farm right now and use the code MK at checkout for a special discount. That's firecracker.farm, code MK. Get some hot salt before it's all gone. You're going to thank me.